All right, so what we've got here in my backyard, chicken coop and pen several years ago, and I made it just barely functional, and I've never really finished it. You can see how the fence is kind of bending over here, so what I'm going to do is put some more posts in and put boards on top, and then kind of frame that in so it's a little bit cleaner, and fix this guy because that was the only piece of wood that I had at the time to make this gate. And then we'll do this fence as well, and then we'll do the garden over here. My wife and youngest are picking the last of the fruits, but we'll do the same thing with this fence, straighten that up, and this direction as well. There's always a debate. Good is the enemy of great versus done is better than perfect. A lot of times I just follow the Pareto principle where putting in 10% of the effort results in 90% of the outcome. The last 90% of effort only results in 10% of the yield, but sometimes that 10% is necessary. Other times I'd rather be spending that energy and time on something else. And classically, I've been a B student in life. 90% is good enough, and I struggle with completing anything beyond what is good enough. So for me, there's always a debate. Good is the enemy of great versus done is better than perfect. And classically, I've always been a B student in life. 90% is good enough, and I struggle with completing anything beyond what is good enough. I think most of the time I don't even recognize the deficiency until I see it done a certain or a different way, and then suddenly the way that I've always done it just doesn't seem good enough. It's not a case of keeping up with the Joneses, but now that I've been introduced to new information, I really have to reevaluate if I'm giving it my best. I read somewhere there's a technique that good CEOs use where you only touch it once, so whatever comes across your desk, you don't read, evaluate, and then set it aside to do later. You do it right then. You take care of it right then. There's so much wasted energy that will go into getting back into it and rereading and reevaluating and then figuring out what needs to be done. And I think to a certain extent, you have to ask in the moment, what percentage is good enough? In some cases, 90% is good enough. In the case of my backyard fence, 20% was good enough. But I guess the real question is, if my level of perfectionism is determined by my personality, do I have the means of changing that? If I naturally default to 90%, can I change my behavior such that my level of expectation is 100%? And I recognize that people will assess your character based on the quality of your work. And I suppose I need to keep that in mind when I'm deciding 90 or 100%.